All right, going to assume that I'm live. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 878, Black Politics. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. There's a link in the chat for you to join the panel. It's a Zoom link. Make sure your Zoom is up to date before joining. And we'll give people 30 seconds to catch up. And then we're going to set the preference for tonight. I'm also joined by my co-panelist, Renaissance Man. What's going on, bro? Right together. Give them a few seconds. All right, here's the deal. What's going on, Renaissance Man?
Hey, what's up, Mike? Wait, could you hear me?
Not much, bro. What's going on? Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Nah, what's up? Nah, looking forward to the stream.
Cool. Let me preference this before we get started. We have been thinking about this for probably the last year or so. We knew that 2024 was going to be the same repeat of 2020, but what we wanted to look at was after 2024, what comes next, right? Who are the candidates that, at least on the Democrat side, are going to be viable for 2028? Republican Party, as we know it today, it's kind of in shambles. It's a blighted party. It's not really functional right now. You have people who are Republican in name only leading the party. You got the legacy class of GOP leaving the party. It's not really a stable environment over there. And so there's nothing really to talk about for 2028 there. However,
Yep.
when you talk about the Democratic
Laura Trump running
Party,
the party.
yeah, when you talk about the Democratic Party, they have a deep bench, and a deep bench meaning that there are a lot of candidates that can come in 2028 that can really shake up things. And I thought that would be interesting for us to even just have this conversation now, because waiting 4 more years doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? And so let me set it off with the first candidate, which would be, let me share my screen real quick. Actually, let me use a different link here because you have any comments on this Renaissance while I get this together?
Yeah, the one thing I will say is I think for 2028, the thing that's unique is I think regardless of whether Biden wins or loses, I don't think that has much of an effect on who the 2028 candidates will be. Versus like Republicans, I think, Trump winning or losing, I think that has a huge impact on who runs in 2028. So that's one distinction. The other thing is, assuming a Biden reelection, the one thing I'd like to see, and I think will be a telltale sign maybe, is that some of the more promising candidates, if they're not a governor currently serving, that they will have some role in the administration or some sort of way to develop candidates. Because one thing Biden ran on that I think he didn't do a good job of this term is he ran on saying he was going to be a bridge to a new generation of leadership for the Democratic Party. Um, and he hasn't quite done that as strongly as I think, that he needed to. Like when you look at Nancy Pelosi, what she's done with Hakeem Jeffries and how she's really passed the torch to him and has sort of, made sure things have gone smooth with him. I think that's a great example of the way it should be done. So I think kind of going forward, if you're Biden, um, like I said, if someone's not a governor who has a potential for running in 2028 that you think has a good potential to win, or at least it'd be good for the party to get them experience, I think you need to look at putting them in like, strategic positions within the administration, or have some sort of, special sort of advisor type role, if that makes sense, just to get them out there, get them on the stage, um, get them exposure, and get them, prepared for 2028. Because if Trump loses, which I think, at least right now, from the performance we've seen from Biden last week at the State of the Union, if Trump loses, 2028 is going to be at least on the Republican side, is going to be just a wide open field and a lot of chaos. And if you're Democrats, you want to be able to strike on that.
All right, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yep, I can.
Okay. All right, so first candidate is Deval Patrick. And here's the deal. I think that Deval, former governor of Massachusetts, um, you know, an Obama bro, if you want to call him that, right? I think Deval Patrick makes a lot of sense for a 2028 bid, right? And here's the deal. Deval has all of the clean baggage that Obama had coming in. He was the governor of Massachusetts. He worked at Bain Capital. He's not an ultra leftist. Like that's what a lot of your Nikki Haley supporters wanted, right? They wanted to be a moderate candidate, not so much on the far right with Trump, but not too far to the left of the Democratic Party. Deval Patrick fits that to a T. He's a finance guy. He's a Wall Street guy. Um, First black governor of Massachusetts, one of the fourth. What would he be? The third governor in America, third black governor in American history, I think. Yeah, I think he would be the third. And so, and actually, I think he will be the first of the 21st century, if I recall correctly. Renaissance, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. I think he's the first of the 21st century. Now, and then you have, you know, Westmore, but we'll get to him later. I think he's a well-polished candidate. I think a Deval Patrick versus a Donald Trump Jr., I think that's an easy victory. right? I think that if you're talking about acolytes like a DeSantis, I think a Deval Patrick is an easy victory for Democrats. What do you think, Renaissance?
Yeah, I think with yeah, I agree with you. Um, I think his lane will sort of be determined by what happens on the Republican side, ironically. Um,
Yeah.
because to your point, he is more of a moderate type of more in that Obama camp of a politician. So like I think if
Mm-hmm.
Trump were if Trump were to say to win or still has influence in the party, so I wouldn't even say necessarily win. Trump still has, if it's still the party of MAGA, even if Trump loses with Republicans in 2028, I think he has a very good shot
Mm-hmm.
because Democrats' strategy would then be, hey, at least a lot of like centrists would be, hey, let's go pick up all of the sort of Nikki Haley camp, which he could go and get Republicans, and then let's get the middle of the road type of Democrats, and then we don't have to appeal to the left as much. Um, so
Mm-hmm.
sort of pushing the Democrats to the right a little or to more to the center. I think he fits in that lane. Now, if say for example Trump loses and say like Michael Steele and company are able to take back the Republican Party, and you get more of a more corporatist type of Republican that kind of goes back to a sort of Mitt Romney, or you get another party that fills that void, then I think his candidacy
Mm-hmm.
becomes a little bit less viable.
Right. And to be quite frank, he's more Mitt Romney than he is not, because they both came from Bain Capital. They both were governor of Massachusetts. Mitt Romney being the first Mormon governor of Massachusetts, and Deval Patrick being the first Black governor of Massachusetts. And so
Yep.
when you really think about it, they have a lot more in common than they do not outside of party. And that's why you can't always get caught up in party politics and think that, oh yeah, Mitt Romney, he's a Republican. Well, not really. He's a conservative, but he's not really a Republican. He's in the Republican Party, but he governed Massachusetts, right? And so he left Massachusetts in good condition, so he didn't destroy the state. But when you really think about it, he could have easily been a Democrat. In fact, today you would consider Mitt Romney to be a Democrat
Yeah.
if you really want to be technical. He's more of a Democrat than he is a Republican. Not that he's a rhino, but he's more of a conservative. But the way the party is being managed forces him to be a Democrat,
Yeah, he'd be a
right?
corporate
And
Dem.
so Deval Patrick, yeah, he's a corporate Dem, right? But Deval Patrick is actually closer to Mitt Romney than he is to, um, let's say a Cory Booker. He's nothing like Cory Booker. In fact, but the only thing that they have in common is that they're both in the Democratic Party and they're both Black and male. That's the only thing that they really have in common. Their politics are different. They're very different.
Yeah. Yeah, I think and if you remember, he actually got into the race in 2020 a little bit. Right, I think right before Biden really kind of locked up the nomination, because a lot of people were a little bit shaky on on Biden actually being able to win. So he actually jumped in.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it was maybe like a month or so, like he ran a campaign before he suspended it. But it was also him trying to sort of run in that moderate lane and appeal to the never Trumpers.
Yeah.
But he is
Yeah.
someone, I think, that if he becomes like a viable, like if he has a real viable chance of winning too, I think because he's not a sitting governor and he hasn't really been in politics actively in a while, I think you have to, if you're Democrats, you want to put him in charge of something, whether it be like
Right.
something in the party apparatus or like a job in the administration or a high profile advisor or something like that. You definitely want to get him back out, sort of reintroduce him to the political world before campaign.
I think if Biden, I think if Biden gets a second term, I see him being Secretary of Commerce. old Bain Capital guy, ran Massachusetts with a top, you know, in tip-top condition,
Yep.
handled a terrorist threat, you know, on the Boston Marathon bombing, um, and pretty much is still favored in Massachusetts. And so I can easily see him being Secretary of Commerce.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Now, Biden has put in um, former mayor of Boston, Marty Walsh, as Secretary of Labor. He steps down from that, and now Biden recently appointed him to be U.S. Postal Service's governor. So what that means is that they are definitely trying to move pieces around, but I think they're moving the wrong pieces around. I think you need to find a role for um, Deval Patrick at some point. I think leaving him out in the woodshed doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like he's a definitely a viable candidate for 2028, and you want to make sure that if you're trying to continue that Obama legacy of prestigious black male and masculinity as well as credibility, I think not setting up Deval Patrick now with a cabinet role kind of hurts you in 2028.
You think he could also be? Because I'm thinking about his ties. You think he could also be
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know, you think they'll keep Jamie Harrison as the head of the DNC, or you think that could be a role for him as well?
I see
I don't.
Jamie Harrison ahead of DNC.
No, no, I'm
Deval
saying,
Patrick being head of the DNC.
yeah, yeah. I'm thinking he'd probably be pretty good at fundraising. Obviously, he'd have connections in places like Boston, New York City, where you're going to have a lot of Democratic money that's going to come in from. So if you don't put him in like the administration, put him in that role.
I don't think that's what he wants. Governors are a little bit different, primarily because they are CEOs, they're chief executive officers. And so they're always looking for that type A role because they got that type A personality. And so it's hard to put them in a DNC role is a more subordinate role and not necessarily a a sort of exclusively leadership role, right? And so you don't have a whole lot of power in that role to govern or anything like that. And so I think it becomes a little bit difficult role. Um, oh, what's the woman from Florida who lost to
Debbie Washington Schultz.
no, not Debbie. The other one who lost to Rubio last midterms.
Oh, Val Demings.
Yeah, Val Demings. I think she makes a lot of sense inside the DNCS in DNC leadership. She makes a lot of sense there. Deval Patrick, not so much. I think with Deval Patrick, he needs a more front-facing role to the administration itself and not separate from the administration at this point. Because if you're going to try to front him for 2028, then he would need some kind of visible role within the immediate cabinet.
He could. I don't know if he
All
has
right.
one other place I could think about is like Treasury maybe. I don't know if he has the
Yeah,
actual.
that's another role.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, if he's worked on Wall Street, then yeah, he could do it.
Quiet as kept, Duvall is actually pretty tech savvy, so he's not all that aloof when it comes to emerging technologies. He's actually pretty adept in that. And so cloud computing and social media, digital services, digital technologies. He's actually pretty adept at that type of stuff. And so I wouldn't put it past if he had some kind of special envoy role like Kerry had for climate change. I could see, Deval Patrick also playing a significant role in like in some of the fourth industrial technologies sort of role, like like some of the stuff that's going on with TikTok, right? Some of the social media stuff that's going on with TikTok. I can see him leading that stuff out. I can see him being a part of the Chips and Science Act. Um, especially that in particular. I think that is a very strong role, straight, very forward thinking role. So those are my last thoughts on that. All right, next candidate is Warnock, Senator Warnock out of Georgia. And why I put Senator Warnock on the list is that I think that Senator Warnock is just as close to Obama as Deval Patrick, but I also think he also is in a more exclusive role than even Deval Patrick may have been in governor of Massachusetts. He's more visible to the public. He's done a lot of work. We can see right on his own page right here how much work is getting done. And I think he's the right candidate if you can't get a Deval Patrick. I think he's the perfect candidate for 2028.
Yeah, he's not. I draw a little bit of a distinction from him and Obama and even Deval Patrick, and that's mainly because he's a pastor. He actually still has his pulpit, and he actually still preaches on Sundays. Like he flies home from DC and preaches on Sunday. So that's the one thing I think that's sort of unique with him is that when you look at Obama, I'm assuming Deval Patrick being from Massachusetts, that religion is not as he's not as tied to that. They don't bring that sort of angle versus like Warnock. You bring more of like when I think Obama and Deval Patrick, I think of people who are more like business or like government leaders in that regard. Um, more technocrats, which I'm not saying Warnock isn't, but to me, he brings more of a dimension of like of a moral leadership. He almost like
Yeah.
almost in the not in the exact vein, but almost more of in like the Jimmy Carter type of archetype, a little bit of a sense of Jimmy Carter was a peanut farmer before he became before he became president, running his family business there. Warnock was a pastor, and then he became a politician. Versus, Deval Patrick and Obama, they have previous legacies as being politicians, so that was sort of their expertise. So I sort of put him in that vein, which I don't think is a bad thing. It's just a different sort of archetype, and I think it brings a certain appeal, especially if you're talking about in contrast with the Trump administration, whether they win or lose, or whether they're running against them, of just like, hey, that I think can appeal across the aisle, both to people who are white and black who have some sort of level of spirituality or faith. I think you can appeal to that while at the same time not alienating people. Because you have a lot of people like Romney, that was his thing. He could not appeal to him being Mormon alienated people. Or if you look at someone who's more, an evangelical and sort of wears their religion on their sleeve, they're going to alienate people. Warnock carries himself in a way where he can bring that element, but not alienate people. So the one thing that will be a hang up for him though is that he's not married, and that's just something that and he could very well be the first that's not, but that's just something that people like the president to be married. So
yeah, there's a lot of traditionalism with that that perspective. Even though the country seems to be moving in this direction of being more inclusive of women in these sort of more progressive roles, they still fall back on that. Are you married sort of deal. We
yeah,
got
and I
Sis and Lou on the panel. What's going on, Lou?
yeah, I was gonna say real quick too, Mike. I think he'd be good internationally as well. I think he'd represent the United States very well on the international stage. Not saying that Deval Patrick would, but once again, I think he brings sort of that moral leadership again.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. But I don't know. To your point, the two obvious visible flaws was that one, that he's not married, and two, that his religious ideals may draw in a certain demographic, but not necessarily be the ace in the deck, right? And so I don't know. I when I really think about it now, I start to think that, okay, Warnock is probably a better VP than he would be a president, right? A POTUS at this point. It'd be okay if he's a VP without a wife, right? In his religious ideals. Because when it came to Mike Pence, nobody really knew, one, who Mike Pence was really married to, but you just knew he was an evangelical, right? You just knew that religious side was there, but it was not necessarily promoted in that capacity. When you think about Hillary and Tim Kaine, Tim Kaine was supposed to be the I guess the moral balance, you can say. I don't know. I don't know what role Tim Kaine was supposed to really bring to the ticket. But with Warnock, he does bring that to the ticket, like you say. I think that 4 years from now, that might be acceptable. But I think if you're thinking right now, I don't know if Warnock's two visible flaws would actually allow him to be the front runner.
Yeah, because that's the like I said, that's one of the things that's actually been changing in American politics is, well, just American society is you've seen a really in the past 20 years a very steep decline in just religious attendance and like a very much a rise in secularism, which is very uncommon for the states. For the vast majority of history, in the United States has been, at least in theory, a very, at least, or claimed publicly, very, even though separation of church and state, very public, in accepting and religious both attendance and participation. And that is starting to wane. But once again, I think he has I think he carries it in a way of it's not something that's going to offend people. Think about it almost like he's a more polished and I'd say more refined than like a Reverend Barber, in a sense. Like Reverend Barber does not use his faith to like condemn people. He uses his faith as a basis for just policies and doing the right thing. And Warnock does the same thing.
Nope, you're absolutely right about that. What's going on, Luke? Can you hear us now?
He's got a mic.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it was okay. I see. It wouldn't let me unmute. Okay, my bad. What's going on, Mike? What's up, Renaissance?
Sean,
Can you
Hey,
guys
what's
hear
up?
me? Okay. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Y'all put up some good names. I didn't even, I didn't even really think. I didn't think about these names y'all were putting out. I was thinking, Peter Buttigieg and Gavin Newsom. I thought it'd be the
No,
ticket 2028.
no, it's good that you bring their names up, but they don't make the list primarily for me. And I can't speak for Renaissance, but for me, Pete Buttigieg is not. He's not a firebrand, right? He's not in demand right now. He's not trending for anything of leadership, beyond where he is right now. And I think what he's doing right now is actually fundamentally good. In that role, I think he has more than enough visibility, and he has more than enough responsibility within that role to accentuate, where he's from and what he's about and who he is as a person. I think that's he's a team player. He's not a leader. Is basically what I'm trying to say. I think when it
That's
comes to Gavin Newsom, I think when it comes to Gavin Newsom, I think the party wants to move away from white male leadership. And I think that's the biggest gripe they have about Biden right now. 2020 Biden was different because he was fighting, an incumbent that basically was for lack of a better description, he was trashing the state for all intents and purposes. And so I think that when it comes to Gavin Newsom, I don't think he in 2028, I don't think he's the hot brand. I don't think he's the it guy. I think he's a good leader for California, but I don't think that that's what the party wants. I think the party wants some form of non-white male. If they can get a woman, they would love to have a woman in charge. I think Kamala was probably the closest thing that they can find, from a VP role, but from a leadership role, I don't think the party really wants Newsom in 2028. I think he's a great candidate for. I think a Newsom versus Trump. Newsom wins two out of three bouts against Trump easily.
Easy.
But a Newsom in 2028, I don't think that that's what the party wants. I think the party is looking for something that's way more dynamic. I think they want a Obama, Kamala wrapped up into something evolutionary. I think that's what they're looking at. Because the party is pulled to the left, mostly because of the House, not necessarily the Senate. Senate's a little bit more moderate and more conservative than the House is. I think that the House is looking for somebody who's closer to that left candidate. Bernie Sanders was that person in 2016 and 2020, but they wasn't going to get that. And so it can't be about age, right? It can't be that, Biden is just too old. Well, Bernie was old too, and nobody seems to have a problem with him. It's just so kind of stupid, right? But in regards to Gavin Newsom, my perspective is that I don't think that Gavin Newsom is the go-to guy for 2028. I think he's a go-to guy for 2024, but not for 2028. Renaissance Man, your thoughts?
Well, I was gonna say real quick. Now you're 100% right. I was thinking more of Peter Buttigieg as a vice president. I was talking about that as a ticket together. But no, that's a good point though. Yeah, they probably are looking at more dynamic people, more reflection of the party. Yeah, that was a good point. Go ahead, Renaissance.
Yeah, I think both will be factors. I think both will run. When you talk about Pete Buttigieg, I think what Biden has done for him is I think that's what he needs to do for sort of people who are viable candidates in 2028. Because assuming Biden gets reelected, I'm assuming Pete will maintain his role as transportation secretary, which, by the time you get to 2028, some of the benefits of the infrastructure bill will start to materialize. So I'm sure he will try to run on, hey, I've been great at sort of rebuilding America, rebuilding his infrastructure. And therefore, hey, let me run on rebuilding America, not just on the infrastructure, but, amongst other things, and leading that angle. So I think he'll definitely run and throw his name in the hat. I think he'll catch some traction. I don't think necessarily he's the favorite, but I think he'll definitely be there. And then obviously the obvious thing with him is going to kind of be, the fact that that he's gay, that could be, in some circles, that's going to be an asset. But a lot of places in this country is still going to be viewed as a liability. So I think that's going to come into play as well. But I think he will run. With Newsom, I think he will run as well. I actually think he has a decent chance. I think I'm not saying he's a top candidate, but I think he's in the top 4 of people who would be favored. I think the main appeal with him is going to be, hey, I was governor of the largest state in America, largest economy in America, 4th largest in the world, relatively progressive. But I think also fundraising. I believe he's somehow related to maybe Nancy Pelosi's nephew or something like that. So he's got close.
Well,
yeah,
something like that. Yeah, they closely tied.
Yeah. So he's got.
But the thing here is, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Please finish your thought.
Yeah. So he's got close ties to her, which I think will translate to close ties for fundraising. And I think that's what's part of what's going to make him a viable candidate. Like I said, I don't necessarily think that he's the favorite, but I think he's going to be someone who's there who, will be in the, like I said, top three, top four of people running.
Well, here's the deal, Renaissance. I think when it comes to Newsom, you have to keep in mind that he was recalled once or twice. Once, definitely. I think there's a second recall that was being put together for him, and so I don't know if he has that much credibility. I mean, to form a recall for a governor is really unheard of in this
Well,
time.
in
Deval
that
Patrick's
instance,
never had a recall. Yeah.
well, in that instance, that was the work of Larry Elder, which I think it was like you needed a small percentage in California to do it, and he won overwhelmingly in response to that. But yeah, point.
Yeah, that's all I was saying. That I don't. That's why I don't think Gavin Newsom is that guy in 2028. Now in 2024, I think it makes a lot of sense to run him against Trump. He'll beat Trump two times out of three, so that would be easy for him. Lou, you have any more thoughts on first two candidates?
I don't know. I'm telling you, man. Ever since the AT&T hack, bro, my joint been, bro. This joint ain't been the same, bro. I'm dropping in and out. Like I don't know if I got a lag, but now I'm good. I'm good. Go ahead and move on, bro. I'm here waiting.
All right, next candidate that I have on the list is Governor of Maryland, Wes Moore. I think Wes Moore brings a lot to the table. He's young. If you run him in 2028, he would be around 49, if I remember correctly. He'd be roughly 49. And so he has a lot going for himself with charisma. I think he has a lot going for himself with leadership, with the Robin Hood Foundation. I think that his military background will serve a key role as well. His Oxford education will play a strong role as well. And I think he also comes from humble beginnings. That plays a strong role as well. And so he has all the hallmarks of a political leader, but I don't know if the rest of the country would get on board with somebody like him when he hasn't really been front line and center. And I think that not the Obama administration, but I think the Biden administration has done a disservice by not frontlining this guy now. If you're not going to frontline Deval Patrick, you're not going to frontline a Senator Warnock. I think not frontlining this guy as a surrogate at the very least for the party is a disservice. It's early in his term right now, but I think by 2028, I think that this guy's going to be pretty much ready to go. As long as you can, keep him out of the BS that's going to come. So, what's your thoughts on this, Renaissance man?
Yeah, right now, if I had to just pick someone, I'd say he's the early favorite to at least be like, if you had to throw all the names in, say 2 years from now of who's at the top of the ticket. I think he's there. I think the thing he's got to govern well in Maryland, which I think he's doing a good job. They are going to have some budget challenges here. He's got to sort of navigate those things and do that well. But if he can make it through because his term just started, he got elected in 2022 as a governor, so he's been on the job a little bit over a year at this point. So he's just got to make it through his term and be able to show that, hey, I led the state in a great way. Maryland's a very pretty progressive state. It's got one of the highest incomes per capita in the nation. So, very, a relatively affluent population, very educated state too, because of mainly being right outside of Washington, D.C. So yeah, I think he's got that appeal. The thing I think that, like I said, that, and I think once again, demographics are changing. So obviously you don't get the, how can I say it? You're not going to get the historics of being Obama, in the sense of, oh, it's first black president. So, people feel like they're making history. People, uh, he's gonna have to work a little bit harder, I think, uh to get the support that he needs. And then also, you've seen how polarized the country has become, because you had a black president, and sort of the response with Trump. That is always something you kind of got to think of as an issue. Is America ready to elect another black president? So I mean, I think it's not, obviously, if you just look at demographics and where things will be, by 2028, you're basically talking about people who are basically 14, so roughly just entered high school, will be able to vote as well too. And people who are older, more conservative, who have, 4 years from now, more of that population will have passed on. So it may not be as much of an issue as I'm thinking of, but I think it'll still be there.
Luke?
Yeah, man. Hey, you guys hit it on the money. I don't really need to say much. I do have I'm gonna wait. I do have somebody else that I think. So I'm gonna just wait till you get to the next one. I got somebody I think might knock it out the park, bro. Just thinking about it, 2028 is gonna, bro. They got a crazy lineup in 2028. Just like a just like an all-star bench they got going on. The Democratic
That's
side.
that's that's been my perspective for the last couple of years since the midterms, that Dems have a very deep bench. Republicans, not so much. I know a lot of people here might be conservative, but they have to understand that the Republican Party is in shambles. You don't really have a whole lot to work with, primarily because you have a Republican in name only running the party, and the party is in shambles, and you have people leaving the party. In the Democrat Party, you don't really have that. You don't really have people leaving. You have more people coming in that are more faithful to the tenets of what they want. And the progressive caucus, as well as the Latino caucus, as well as the Congressional Black Caucus, the CBC, reflect the future of the party right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Cause hey, can I go ahead?
All
Can
right.
I go ahead? Person, Mike.
Let me get through these
Go ahead.
candidates
Go ahead.
first,
Go ahead.
and then we'll jump to yours. Yeah. Governor Hochul, Kathy Hochul of New York. I throw her in as a potential candidate, and here's why. She has governed New York fairly well. She's been in politics for quite some time. She handled the crisis in Buffalo better than, let's say any other candidate. Let's say a candidate from Florida who dropped out, running up against the Tangerine Tyrant. And so, despite all of the news about New York having these subway slashings and shootings and things like that, New York is fairly stable. It's not really an unstable place. You don't see people trying to riot and overthrow the government there. And so she's been able to manage New York pretty fairly balanced for the most part. And so New York, kind of borders several states. It's a part of the tri-state, and then it borders Massachusetts, it borders Vermont, it borders the Canadian border, so it does have some form of broad reach in terms of how it's managed. From a public safety standpoint, and from a budget standpoint, from a commerce standpoint, it's still relatively strong. The market is still relatively strong there, regardless of what the media wants to say about migrants, taking dumps out there in Central Park somewhere. That doesn't reflect Governor Hochul's leadership there. And so she's still fairly young. She's older than the previous three candidates that we mentioned, potential candidates that we mentioned, but you have to keep in mind that, you know, she came in at a different time period. She's definitely a boomer, if I remember correctly. And so she's a good face for the party. I think it's what the party wanted in Clinton. I think she brings that to the party. What are your thoughts on that, Renaissance man?
Yeah, I think she'll definitely, like I said, I think she will definitely be someone whose name will be involved in the race at the very least, even if she does not compete or is a serious contender for president. I think she will be strongly looked at as possibly a VP, depending on, you know, if you have a male at the top of the ticket, then I think more than likely you're probably going to be looking at them trying to pick a female vice president, just because of the party dynamics, or vice versa. If you have a female at the top of the ticket, you're probably looking at, like if she's at the top of the ticket, you're probably looking at someone like a minority male as the VP. But yeah, coming out of New York, successfully governing the state, you know, I think she's basically, if she continues to do a good job, she'll basically be what Cuomo should have been, in the sense before the whole COVID scandals of, you know, sort of saying, hey, you know, I've led the state with the, you know, one of the most popular cities in the world. They're one of the largest populations. So yeah, she will definitely be a viable candidate, and she's been in politics for a while too. So I think that always helps from the standpoint of just favors and connections across the political spectrum that you've been able to build as you moved up through the ranks.
Lou, your
Yeah, I
thoughts?
remember she. Yeah, I think she's doing some. I remember I was reading about it. I think they were moving like an interstate. I believe in Buffalo. They're like so. Like I said, man, I'm liking seeing. She seems like she's with the urban planning movement. A lot of people trying to build, you know, more progressive cities where they're more connected, more diversity, more like I said, connectivity, more walkability, micro mobility, stuff like that. So I mean, hey, that's great. Now, like you said, though, I don't know that National Guard thing they got going on. Now that was her, right? Then she pushed those. Was that Eric Adams? Who was behind that?
No, no, that was Holco. Holco. Only Holco can demand the National
But it
Guard to
was
come
it
in.
was the National Guard though, right? It wasn't just more police presence. I just want to make sure. I didn't know if
Yeah,
it was National Guard or it
yeah,
was just the police.
yeah, it was National Guard. She was doing it as a show of force, trying to, more than anything, appeal to people's emotions, because people, you know,
Mhm.
people are saying, hey, they may not feel as safe. So trying to bring that feeling of safety, even though data may not be pointing to people having any concerns, dealing with the human element.
Yeah, the safety piece is making people feel better is certainly a big part of that. You got the Republicans pushing hard in the state, saying, "Hey, you know, we got these problems in the subway," and even though subway incidents and crime has actually gone down from 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 2022, 23, it's actually gone down. You know, still with the slashing and the shooting, that happened just a couple, just just the other day. That's just got people feeling, oh, is there going to really be a problem here? And Hochul's just wanting to make sure that people feel certainly more comfortable. She's added on, another 700 or so um, National Guards instead of hiring police, even though those guards do not have, they're not deputized with arresting power. They do serve as somewhat of a deterrent, so they can actually kind of get involved in a situation if it comes about. But that really is more a political move than anything else. But she's doing that because she is, because there is, you want to make the riders and subway riders feel more comfortable, and you don't want to have people walking around saying, "Hey, the Democrats are soft on crime," and that's why we're seeing essentially what we are seeing there. I would also have to say, Hochul definitely has she's a strong candidate certainly for for the presidency, if she decides to run. She has had a lot of experience inside of the Beltway in DC. She started out there as a as that's where her career really started. Um, years ago when she came out of school, and basically because she went to law school there, and she's kind of been in and out of that area, has good connections, worked for some other Congress people when she was younger, and certainly has come up the ranks. It's funny, she and I were in college at the same time. Even though I was a freshman coming in, she was a senior leaving. We were at Syracuse at the same time as well. So, I am, to someone who went to the same school, I'm certainly positive about that. But yet at the same time, she came in as kind of almost like being appointed to the seat as governor, but then handled a lot of the issues I thought pretty decently as governor, and then was elected. When her term came up to actually be elected now instead of coming in as an appointment, she was elected, did a pretty good job, has been handling things pretty well, dealing with some key budgetary issues and so forth. She's done a pretty good job so far. Has it been perfect? No, but certainly she's governed the state I would say respectively. So that's going to give her, governors tend to be good candidates for presidents, and most of our presidents have come out, either they were governors or senators, and she has kind of come out as a pretty successful governor. So I think she's going to be a good potential candidate if she decides to run. Don't know if she's going to do so. Don't know. She hasn't said a word about running. She's been real tight-lipped about that. So, what her intentions are, no one really knows as of yet. But she definitely is a good candidate for that. She works with a lot of different ethnic groups fairly well, a Black community, Latino community, so forth. Women's groups, so forth. She's actually been pretty positive. She's been pretty positive. I cannot say there's a hell of a lot against her. Has she been perfect? No, then no one has been, but she certainly is definitely, I think, a very strong candidate for 2028. She definitely has a good pedigree for it, and works well with groups. And works well with many different other groups. So I think she has she would be a very credible candidate. And the key, once again, I would say, is she would also appeal to that suburban women's group, I think, as well. That you're going to have to certainly deal with, not only now, but you're going to have that as a factor in 2028. So, yeah, I think she's a very good candidate for that. Let's see if she decides to make a run, but if she does, she could be potentially quite formidable.
That's a good point about the suburban female, the suburban woman candidate. Suburban woman voter. She basically fulfills a role that Nikki Haley failed to deliver on, and I think that she is what Nikki Haley wishes she was. She wishes that she could govern South Carolina the same way that Governor Hochul is doing now. She wishes that she had all of the support that Hochul has, that she did not have in South Carolina, right? She wishes she had that pedigree too. I think Hochul graduated from Syracuse, right?
Yeah. Two Syracuse, yeah. Went there, went there at the same time. She was graduating when I was coming in, but yeah, she went to Syracuse, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And she's surrounded by minorities, Latinos, Blacks, Caribbean, African. You run New York's whole entire social demographic makeup is in her cabinet and surrounding her. And so, and she's pushing for reparations for Black people.
Yeah, she
Nikki
certainly is.
Haley, not so much. And so what I'm saying here is she's a better version of what Nikki Haley wishes she was on the campaign trail. You ask Nikki Haley about slavery, hamina, hamina, hamina. You talk to Kathy Hochul, let's talk about reparations. That's a different response.
Oh,
right? And so, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, Mike. She would knock that. She would knock that. She would knock that out of the park. So, and remember, she's an attorney.
That's so easy.
She's a lawyer as well. She's an attorney, and went to school in D.C. She is, very, very, very well trained. She's got a very strong background, in like I said, in politics and certainly, certainly in a lot of in history also. She definitely is. She's a lot smarter than Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley, unfortunately, is not that. She is not that bright. Governor Hochul certainly is far stronger. And you bring up an excellent point when you bring that up. That's right on the head. In fact. Anyway, so go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
And I would also argue, before I pass it off to Lou, I would also argue that she is what Clinton should have been, what Hillary should have been. Because Hillary Clinton was a senator out of New York too, right?
Yeah, she was.
Yes, yes, she was.
Yeah, so she embodies, what I'm saying is she embodies a lot of archetypes that past candidates have tried to, placate to, but they can never actually, they can never actually execute on. And so I say don't sleep on Kathy Hochul. I think that Governor Hochul is definitely going to make a run in 2028. She doesn't need to run twice. She steps to the side. Her lieutenant governor is I always mess up this brother's name. I think it's Antonio Delgado, if I remember his name, Lieutenant Delgado, lieutenant governor.
Yes, lieutenant governor. Yes, now, yeah. Andrea Stewart Cousins, who I know quite well, is stepping into that spot as well. I think from him, but yes, that is the case. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So what you do is you give an opportunity for a Delgado to take leadership over New York while you make the presidential run. That makes a lot of sense. You're moving all your pieces in the right place. Dems have a deep bench. And I'm not saying this because I'm some kind of Democratic fan and I'm just this big fanboy and I'm, vote blue no matter who. This is not what this is about. We're thinking about 4-8 years from now.
I'm sorry, Mike. I'm sorry. I don't want to run. I'm sorry. I made a mistake here. Brian Benjamin. He actually is lieutenant governor in New York. He's lieutenant governor as of right now.
Is he really?
Let me see.
It says Delgado is.
Yeah, Delgado. Okay. Because it's been a little shake up there, but Brian Benjamin was first. He was first appointed, and that was in 2021, and he was a brother. Appointed him, and then Delgado. Then Delgado came in. So I just want to, just to get clear on that. So he's lieutenant governor now. He was sworn in on the 22nd in 2022. Excuse me. And he is he's close, and he's Latino. He brings Latino votes. So if you look at what she's done, she first brought in a black man and then have a Latino. So she really works with those groups. So she's credible So she's credible working with others. Let's just say she definitely is about working with working with diverse groups. That certainly is a fact. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, my original point was that Hochul goes on a POTUS run. He moves into the governor's mansion, sets up the nice pieces to be in play over the next 4 to 8 years. And what I was saying before was that I'm not saying this because I'm some kind of Democrat, fanboy or vote blue, no matter who, like some of these guys in the space like to say. I'm looking at this realistically. The Democratic Party has such a deep bench right now. It's crazy. Okay. Republicans don't have any answer to anything that we're talking about right now. Not even close. Not even close.
And we're not even
I mean,
done.
we saw what just happened on it. Yeah, we're not done. And so if Biden was to win in 2024, it's highly likely that they will win in 2028. They'll go from 2028 to 2032 cruising, and then from 2032 they can go to 2036 pretty easily as well, on back-to-back terms. They can three-peat this. Okay, this is not something to play games with. We're not talking about cult of personality here. We're talking about real hard political governance. Governor Hochul manages New York, one of the best economies in the country. Deval Patrick, very strong background in Massachusetts. Everybody loves him. Nobody has anything negative to say about him. Handled the terrorist crisis pretty well with the Boston bombing. Managed the budget in Massachusetts. Brought a lot of life sciences, biotech firms. Made Massachusetts the #1 place for cybersecurity in life sciences in the country, and one of the top 3 in the world right now. And then you take in a Warnock who's a like Renaissance said, brings a very balanced background, better than anything Mitt Romney could have ever brought to a POTUS ticket. And then you take it a Wes Moore, who's a freshman candidate, from a gubernatorial standpoint, 4th Black governor in American history. The Dems got a deep bench. That's not something to sneeze at or laugh at. This is serious business, right? Go ahead.
I was just going to say very quickly, the Dems could run this if they play their cards right. If they play their cards right, and depending if Biden, gets reelected, all these are big ifs right now. Mm-hmm. If they play their cards right, we could be looking at the Democrats running things like they did from the 30s up into the 60s. It was pretty much all Democrats, from Roosevelt straight to pretty much straight to President Johnson, with only one with only one break in that with respect to Eisenhower during that period. But that's kind of what we're looking at, and much of the legislation that really has helped to kind of advance this country during that period was very much done during those during that 30-year period coming through the Democrats. So that's kind of what you're really looking at potentially, that with the opportunity that we have, and especially the kind of the disarray that we've seen, kind of the Republican Party and it being the party of Trump potentially, that the Republicans are going to have to kind of change and kind of really kind of remake themselves in some ways, especially if they lose here. So that could be a big task for them, and we don't see a deep bench there. But you are 100% correct, Mike, as far as the depth of the bench with respect to what the Democrats have currently. It's kind of not even it's kind of like not even a contest. Anyway, okay, go ahead, Lou, you got it.
Bro, and that's what I'm saying. When you talk about the bench, I'm gonna say it, man. I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it, bro. They ain't got bro. The Republicans have nobody that can match Big Grinch. Literally nobody. Nobody. I mean, she done turned Michigan into a Democratic fortress. the UAW strike, they all
Yeah.
went through her. She was supporting them throughout the whole way.
Yeah, that's a great point.
She for the people. Who the Republicans got? Who? Ted Cruz? Lindsey Graham?
Well, from a gubernatorial standpoint, from a governor's mansion standpoint, they will probably throw somebody like a what's the governor of South Dakota?
The woman,
What's
the
her name
female?
for South
You talking about
Dakota?
the lady? Yeah, I forgot her name.
Yeah, I forget her name now, but then you also have Sarah Huckabee Sanders of Arkansas. See, Republicans can push the idea that we have diversity in our party from a gender standpoint. That's easy because they're all white. But when it comes to actually having a deep bench, they don't have that, man. None of the candidates actually support anything that Black people actually want, with the exception of maybe border, the securing of the border. When you take into consideration the Democratic candidates that we just talked about just now, Hochul, she's on board reparations. Warnock, on board with reparations. Westmore, on board with reparations. Deval Patrick, on board with reparations. If you're trying to win the Black vote over, you start with reparations, right? For most people, because that's an easy victory. Even if you can't benefit from it, that's an easy talking point to have. And so I think the problem here is Republicans don't have anything to offer, and Democrats have a whole lot to offer. Legislate from a policy standpoint, public policy standpoint, and then you start taking into consideration who are those candidates that's going to make an attempt to make those offers. And you look at the bench and how deep it is, they just move their pieces around pretty easily. Hochul tries to make a POTUS run. She has a brother that's going to step in. Warnock tries to make a run. He has the alphas behind him, Divine Nine behind him. You think about Deval Patrick, he has Obama behind him. You think about name another, like you said, Lou Governor Whitmer. I think she is a strong candidate today. I don't know if she's a strong candidate in 2028. Michigan is not one of those visible states like New York and let's say California is. It's kind of in the corner of what people typically think of. And so I do think she is running a strong state. I think she handled, the crisis of these terrorists trying to overrun her at the state house and try to form a kidnapping against her. I think she handled that pretty well, and I think that that's something that she can write home on her ticket. But if she goes on stage with a Kathy Hochul, she's in trouble, almost exclusively in trouble, because either you conform to what she's talking about, Kathy Hochul, or you get out the race. I think that speaks volumes about it. But all of them all have stories to tell that are very much, acceptable to Black people in terms of a talking point. Go ahead, Nicole.
Oh no, you were talking about Governor. I think that's Kristi Noem, right? That's from South Dakota.
South Dakota.
Yeah. She seems to be. She could be credible. She looks decent. Has a conservative record. Does not seem to be a so much of a what I call a MAGA type. She seems to kind of run, somewhat of a conservative Republican side. I've seen her. I've heard her talk. I don't know how deeply she is in the Trump camp, so you don't hear much about her. But from the Republican side, does she look credible? She looks a little bit credible. She looks a little bit credible, depending on kind of where she is. Is she a real Trump insider? But from the Republican side, she's probably one of the brighter lights. Probably one of the brighter lights that they may have.
I think Nagone,
keep in mind
I think the favorite in 2020, assuming Trump loses, I think the favorite on the Republican Party side in 2028 is probably Youngkin.
Probably so.
Just because he kind of stayed away from Trump. He ran away from him. He's governor of Virginia. Virginia is kind of a purple state. So I think he's probably going to be the favorite.
Okay. I wouldn't disagree with you. I'm just saying, who do they really have strong on that side? She, she probably looks halfway decent. I mean, she's done some of the things that the Republicans done. She's also opposed, the Affordable Care Act and all that kind of stuff. So she's coming in there with this against the Democrats and so forth. Though she did support Donald Trump, but she doesn't seem to be a total MAGA freak. So it's just difficult to say. Like I said, I don't see a lot of bright spots there, but she may not be the darkest, because Mike had brought her up previously, and I was going to chime in, but Mike was talking. So that's all I'll say about her. I mean, but Youngkin does look strong. But anyway, go ahead, Mike.
No. The point that I was making was that if they wanted to run, minority for minority, gender for gender sort of deal against a Hochul or a another candidate within the Democratic Party, I'm saying that they don't have anything. They don't have a bench because they eat their own. They ate Kevin McCarthy. Where's he at now? You got people leaving the party because they can't, get anything done. That should tell you the state of the party. And so I'm saying that the party doesn't really have anything to offer long term. They can't make it to 2028 because they haven't crafted any candidates.
Yeah.
And a lot of the candidates that would have been viable have already left. Where's Adam Kinzinger? Where's Ben Sass? Where's all these people that were supposed to be the future of the party? They're not there anymore. A lot of these guys are just MAGA acolytes, and that's, you got an extremist lieutenant governor running in North Carolina right now. How he's going to win, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, when you really put the Democrat 2028 candidates on the table, and then you really start looking at the table for right now for Republican Party, the party's in shambles. That party has asbestos. It has a whole lot of issues going on inside there. I don't know how they're going to be able to win anything nationally on a ticket. It doesn't make any sense outside of Trump. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense as to what they're trying to do and what they're hoping to do, what they're hoping to gain with these candidates. They're pretty much washed up at this point. And it's due to the fact that people chase the cult of personality. And when you hear people say like, "Oh, you guys are the butthurt vote blue no matter who," and I'm like, I look at the screen right now and I see nothing but viable candidates. Even I'll go as far as saying that Kathy Hochul could potentially find another female VP to run with. Just to be that extraordinary for the party, because right now the party is 3-dimensional and 4-dimensional. They ran Obama. That was a 3-dimensional move. They got Kamala Harris into a VP position. That's a 4-dimensional move. I know a lot of people don't like her, but that's a 4-dimensional move. That's the way the party is thinking. They're thinking multi-dimensional as to how they can get their candidates, how their candidates can relate to the base, and if the base is going to get behind it, and if the party's going to get behind it. In the Republican Party right now, you don't really have that. You have everybody trying to be like the big guy, and the big guy isn't who he say he is himself. And so I don't know, man. I don't know where Black men find themselves in that party at all at this point, primarily because the party is hostile towards Black male interests. If you take abortion off the table, if you take away, the border issue, you really don't have a place for Black men within the party. And so what way would they be able to win in these key battleground states if they can't get the Black vote? They really don't have a future.
That's what I'm saying, bro. Like, who they gonna put? Margie Taylor Greene up there? Like you said, look at all these MAGA acolytes, all these people who in 2020 made all this noise. Look at 2024. Jim Jordan. They gonna put Jim Jordan up there. They don't. They gonna roll Abbott up there. I mean, what are they gonna do? I mean, like you said, if you look past like the Wizard of Oz, look past the curtain. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you really see it. It's just the house of cards dilapidated. It's really it don't even I can't even fathom how anybody could even be making an argument for the Republicans. All they can do is just Biden old, the
Mhm.
border, Biden old. Uh, Kamala Harris talk too much. Like they don't have anything. They have nothing for their constituency. They have nothing for their base, the boomers, who in some of these states they're actively unaliving without the expansion of Medicaid. I mean,
Yeah.
they're on their way like the wig, man.
Mm. Well, as we
No,
see,
it's
I don't.
mhm.
No, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go please go ahead, please.
No, the boomers are going to be a very big voting group. Certainly that's going to be the, you know, you like to say the silent generation and so forth. They're sliding on out of there. So the boomers are certainly going to be a very big voting group in this election and the next. So how that really, how what candidates appeal to that group is going to play a key role. Healthcare and so forth are going to be very big there as well. Mentioning health issues and so forth there, that's going to be heavy. Where the Republicans going to line up on that's going to be a factor. Um, and just looking at that next can in that 2028 group, who's really going to, I'd say it's going to have to really appeal, to just not, the so-called classical minority voters and bring some things about that within our interests, but certainly that middle of the road, suburban women's group, that's going to be there. That's not going to go anywhere. Who's going to appeal to them greatly as well with respect to what they might be looking for. You're going to have the candidates that are going to have to really appeal
Mhm.
to all those sides. That healthcare is not going to be anything that's going to get weaker. It's going to get stronger. So people are talking about, reducing the CARE Act and doing all the stuff with a group like the Boomers, my group, that's going to be voting very, very strong. These things are going to be factors. Where did Republicans line up there? And that's key. There's a lot going on that you have to start to really work on now. As this election,
Mhm.
winds down, 2028 will be coming up very quickly after that. Candidates are going to have to be in place. Who do the Republicans have who can kind of address this? And where are the Democrats going to stand up? And the Democrats look to have an advantage there. So that's what we see so far. Will that be the case moving forward? Hard, we could say somewhat difficult to say, but it looks pretty obvious as to what the situation is going to be. And I'll just leave it at that.
Renaissance man, you got any thoughts?
No, no, I'm good.
Okay. No, I think that Lou brings up a good point. Governor Whitmer is actually fairly young. I think she's still in her 40s, if I remember correctly. And so she does become an alternative to Kathy Hochul, but I also think that she is not the leader that necessarily the party would want. There's a huge desire to have Bernie Sanders in office, even if Bernie Sanders doesn't want to be in office. And so they're looking for this sort of super leftist person that, let me say this. Bernie Sanders is not the ultra leftist that people think he is. Vermont is full of the military industrial complex. Don't think because Vermont didn't have slavery that somehow makes them leftist. No, there's a lot of racism in Vermont, and so I Bernie Sanders might be the exception, but he's no ultra leftist. I think that, this guy is not what people think he is. He's very bullish on or very bearish on Palestine too. He's not out there, doing the rah 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 for Palestine. So I don't necessarily consider him to be the ultra leftist that people make him out to be, at least in this space. Some people, like TYT will have this guy out there like he's the only real leftist in the party, and I'm like, his historical track record does not reflect that, and so we can't sit here and keep promoting Bernie Sanders as the only viable candidate for leftist politics. He just isn't it. I think the real leftist politics in the Democratic Party is the Congressional Black Caucus right now. For the most part, if you really want to be technical, their agenda completely aligns with 99% of what Black people want from a party politics standpoint. And so, the only real leftists in the party are pretty much those who could put their ideas on paper and execute on them. And I don't see Bernie Sanders really doing a whole lot. He's
And
making, his state makes a lot of money off of Lockheed Martin's F-35 program. Go ahead.
And what and I remember just listening to him on the reparations piece. He didn't want to talk about reparations. He didn't really want to put that on the table. A lot of people are not saying anything about that, but Bernie was not really big on that reparations piece, which a lot of people want to see, especially from the more progressive side, and from the Black voter perspective, the cut the check crew and all of that. Where does he stand? And Bernie's not that strong as far as that's concerned as well. So, he's.
You think
he's not
you think Killer Mike was asking that question? I don't think so.
No, no, I don't think he was.
Yeah, I don't think so.
That might be the Republican.
I definitely think. Say it again, Lou.
I was saying that might be that who they try to run out for VP. They might have a kid. That might be their last hope. The Republicans might try to run him out of there. That's how depleted they bitch. Gotta get him on a 10 day.
Well, oh man, no, I definitely think that Kemp. If you just want to talk about Republican politics real quick, I think that Kemp will be the emerging player out of 2028.
I think
served
so too.
2 terms as governor of Georgia. Yeah, I think served 2 terms as governor of Georgia. Kept the economy going during the pandemic. Getting people torn out the frame, but making a few bucks here and there. And he could stand up for himself. Unlike Abbott in Texas. I don't see.
Was that a double entendre?
I don't see anybody else in the Republican. I'm like, I don't see anybody else in the party who can be as viable as Kemp right now. He's kept his mouth shut about January 6th. He's kept his mouth shut about the state of Georgia versus Trump. And he kind of, people for whatever reason, people in Georgia seem to like him for the most part, and so they're not trying to get rid of him. If that was the case, they would have voted for Stacey Abrams. And so, that being said, Kemp looks like he could potentially be the change maker after Trump. And so, I don't see how they rebuild the party with Trump within it. I think that it's impossible. I think you would have to evict this guy out. And if Nikki Haley stayed in for this long, she probably knows that there's something else that's going to come down. Another shoe is going to drop for him too. And so you could potentially see Nikki Haley and Kemp getting together in 2028. That could potentially be a ticket for them.
It's possible. It's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. They're 2 adversary. Well, she's an adversary of Trump right now, but Kemp is playing the poker face. mostly because he has a lot more to lose than he does to gain. He doesn't want to get torn out the frame as while he's still in the mansion. And so she's not in the mansion right now, and in fact, she's unelected. So she's out of the race. So she doesn't have a whole lot to lose. She just has a whole lot more to gain, and the more she could, help twist the knife into this guy's back. By sparing this guy. I beg your pardon?
No, go ahead, Mike. That was just me. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so I think that is it for the Republican Party. I don't think that without Kemp being at the front runner going into 2028 and him finding the female VP, I don't think the party's going to be able to be salvaged at this point. I think they lost a lot of women due to these abortion bills being passed or being proposed, and then things getting put on the ballot, and then things getting voted to be turned over. They don't really have anything right now. But they knew this going back to Obama, right? Obama's first term, they did the math, they did the analysis. If the numbers stay the same with new voters coming on board every single election cycle, they were going to lose. Okay, they knew they were going to lose elections going all the way into the future. It was just impossible to rely on silent generation and boomers to sustain the vote for you over the next 2, 3, 4 election cycles. It's impossible, and you don't have enough people, new voters coming on to the conservative ticket. It's just not viable long term, and people don't really have a big grand strategy to lift the country up and move it forward. They can't compete with China because China is way more dynamic. That's just what it is. Their politic and their ambitions are way more of a astronomical than let's say a Republican led country. It just makes more sense that only the Democratic Party can really move forward on big ticket things, infrastructure bills,
I saw that. I saw the guy
Inflation Reduction Act.
I saw the Massachusetts congressperson introduce the High Speed Rail Act. I can't think of the top.
Yeah, that's a big thing here.
You know what I'm talking about, Mike. I can't remember his name, but I know he was a Democrat from Massachusetts, though.
Markey. Markey and Senator Markey. Yeah. The thing here is,
and Mike, I also want to say that's also why they gone after the Voting Rights Act and have moved to reduce your numbers as voters, especially in very key battleground state areas. That's what that whole process was about. Instead of broadening the base with more minority folks or whatever in the party, let's keep it the way the party is and reduce your ability to participate. So that's a big, those are big reasons for why you're looking at voting rights and so forth being attacked, to keep your numbers down there, because they know they can't really compete there as well. So they have to keep you out of the voting booth. So I just wanted to make that point clear.
No, and that's a very strong point and a good way to end it, because a lot of folks in this space don't realize that, they want to get rid of the black vote. Trump lost the majority of his 2020 bid in the sort of swing states where he wanted to challenge the results in predominantly black areas or predominantly areas where that he just lost it. In the places that he lost it are the areas that he needs to win in 2024. And if he can't get that, he's not winning. The numbers don't lie. For all the numbers guys in the space, the numbers don't lie. Go ahead, Renaissance Man.
Yeah, I was going to add one more before we break. I think he will be amongst moderate Dems, and maybe even some maybe some of the progressives as well too. Is Andy Beshear of Kentucky, and that's because he has won governor, I think, twice now, in Mitch McConnell's home state. He's actually done some relatively progressive things, raising the minimum wage. I know he vetoed a bill, Republicans basically trying to go after LGBT plus rights. I know he stepped in there. His economic policy, as far as trying to rebuild roads and infrastructure, as well as factories, and then getting raises for teachers. So he's done some progressive things. I think the main appeal of him will be if Democrats feel, based on, I think Sean was pointing out in the chat, if this sort of reverse migration continues to take place, where Dems sort of continue to lose votes in the electoral college in like the Northeast because of just population shifts. If they're talking about like a 50 straight strategy, I think that's where his name will come up of, hey, we could maybe win, in the sense of he could almost, wouldn't be exactly like him because I don't think he's nearly as charismatic, but they would almost try to treat him like a Bill Clinton type of candidate, of someone who's from the South, has done enough progressive things, and that could win in multiple places that Democrats usually don't. But like I said, I think his path is one that changes the traditional path to victory for Democrats.
And before we break
that's
down,
very possible.
I wanted to ask Mike, I know real quick, what do you guys think about the Pennsylvania governor, Shapiro? You think he got a shot?
We talked about that before, Nagone. I think that Shapiro is a last line candidate. I don't think he's a primary candidate. I think he's a last line candidate.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. So I mean, especially all the names. You're right.
Yeah, because the way the party is moving, Lou, it doesn't. The party is Big Tent. The era of white men dominating the party stops with Biden. I think that Biden is the last of it. I don't think you could punch that ticket one more time. I don't think that that's going to work. I think that Obama proved if you run a mean ground game, you can win. Even as a black man, I think you can win. Now, some people will say, "Oh, it was the bankers, it was the the Illuminati, the Bilderberg, and all this other stuff." No. If you run a mean ground game, you can win. And I think the Obama campaign have proven that a strong ground game is a key to a victory. Trump is a different, he's an exception to the rule, primarily because they didn't even plan to win themselves. They kind of threw their hat in, hope, to see what would happen, but not necessarily to win. That being said, I think that Shapiro makes a good VP. I don't think he makes a good leader of the party itself. I don't see the party getting behind somebody like him. Mostly because if you look at the House right now, you look at Congressional Black Caucus, you look at the Progressive Caucus, you look at the up and coming Latino caucus, it's hard to get behind a Shapiro or any other white candidate for that matter. In 2028, I'm thinking future. I'm not thinking now. I'm thinking future. And I'm saying I don't think that Shapiro would be that guy. I think he's a good governor, but I don't think he's the designated hitter that the party is looking for. I think that the party is looking for somebody that's a lot more melanated. I think they want more women representation in the party at the top of the ticket. And I think that, Kamala Harris kind of set the bar pretty high for the next, for the next candidate to come in, that they have to choose something that's going to be just as radical, if not more radical, than what they have right now. And so those are my thoughts on that. Anybody else have any last thoughts?
Yeah, I will say, Lou, I do think Gretchen Whitmer out of Michigan. I think now I looked at it, I think she might be a little bit stronger of a candidate than Hochul because of age. Because Hochul's 65 right now. So she'd be close to 70 or a little bit above 70 by the time 2028 came around. So that could, because that was kind of in that age range where people were concerned about Hillary Clinton's age. Granted, Biden's 80, gonna be what, 83?
Well, she would be 69, 4 years, 65 for 69, 70.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of presidents at that age.
Yeah.
So she's in the presidential gap. I think really people start worrying about age when you start getting out of your 70s, moving into your 80s, and that seems to be an issue.
Because I know, well, Clinton was around that age, and people raised that same issue as well. She's around her 70s as well. Versus Whitmer will be closer to her 50s, maybe in her 50s.
Yeah, she's young. She's definitely young.
So she's a little bit younger.
Kamala Harris is in her 50s. She's not, I don't see people doing backflips over the age.
Well, it becomes more of a.
Tulsi Gabbard's in her. What I'm saying is Tulsi Gabbard's in her 40s, and no one was doing backflips over her.
No, I'm saying it's more of. I think it becomes more of an issue the older you get. I don't think people hold it against you once you're like in your mid 40s, close to your 50s. I think they probably think that's probably your ideal age versus when you get into your 70s at president. I think that's when the questions start to pop up, or people start to make it a campaign issue. So that's the only thing. I mean, I still think Hochul is a strong candidate, but I think Whitmer, because of the age, makes her a little bit stronger of a candidate.
And she has a very strong presence amongst Gen Z too. Very strong.
Oh, I think she's a millennial herself. Right? I think if she's not a millennial, she's a Gen Xer, but she's very close to that demographic. So
yeah, she's
she has the Palestinian vote.
Yeah, very much so. Smart politician. I would say she's definitely smart, and from the standpoint, I think those crazies, the Wolverines and those guys trying to grab her and trying to do that madness they were talking Shackles, up there.
I think the other thing is too is she's governor of Michigan, so Dems are always worried about Michigan. If you're taking the traditional path, Dems are always worried about Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So right there, that gives you one of that trifecta right there. If she's somewhere on the ticket, if she's not the top of it, she's the VP pick. That's at least a play of a governor that makes sense from if you're playing the traditional strategy, because 4 years from now, a lot of states like Georgia will probably still be in play. North Carolina could be in play. Even Texas could be in play. So by 2028, just with the way demographics are changing. So it just depends on what path Dems are trying to play to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Good stream, guys. Catch you all on the next one, man.
Hey, thanks for coming on, Lou. Really appreciate it.
Hey, Lou, what it do, Lou?